Welcome back to the Vanessa Eriksson podcast, where we talk about data, AI, innovation, and leadership shaping tomorrow. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most powerful forces that is transforming society, artificial intelligence. To discuss this, I have invited none other than Gabriela Styf Sjöman, Managing Director, Research and Network Strategy at the British Telecom Group. Let's get started. And so she said, we're doing it all again. Welcome, Gabriela. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Vanessa.
In Sweden too.
Yes, in Sweden.
Yeah. Would you mind telling our audiences a little about yourself?
Yes, my name is Gabriela Styf Sjöman, and I'll start a little bit about myself. I'm a Swedish Mexican. My mother is Mexican, my father is Swedish. Usually people say wow, I say yes, wow. I grew up with a Mexican, very passionate Mexican mother and a very calm Swedish father.
Yeah.
And I live in London. I'm the managing director for research and network strategy for BT Group. A phenomenal job that allows me to work with the latest of technology, trying to understand what is coming and also to assess in the way it will impact people and society. Yeah. I also sit on the board of TDC Net, which is a Danish netco, and I sit on the board of Lintia Networks, which is an Iberian infraco. Selling lit fiber, dark fiber, and data centers, and I do some advisory for VC in Singapore.
That is so cool.
Thank you.
I'm also saying wow to the Mexican mom and the Swedish dad. What a combo! What a combo!
I know.
You've got a fiery woman and a calm dad.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I think it's amazing. We live in a global world.
Yeah.
So I think to grow up with two different cultures, I think is just such an enormous asset. Yeah. I've also had the privilege of living in many countries. UK is my 13th country.
Yep.
And I think it's just great. It gives a lot of a perspective. I usually say there's no really right or wrong. There are many ways of doing things. But it enables to approach things from a different angle. To accept, respect, and above all, truly value diversity, but also know the power of inclusion.
I love that. Thank you. Gabriela, you've held senior roles in a lot of companies and across a lot of continents. Telecom Italia, we have to talk more about that. Yeah. I love the Italians.
So do I. So do I.
Yeah. I mean, and then you've been at Nokia and Telia and now BT. What drew you to this industry and what still keeps you?
Well, what drew me, actually, it was a little bit by coincidence that I ended up in telecom, because I studied power engineering, which would have taken me to Vattenfall probably. So it was really pure chance. But I began my career with Eriksson, and what attracted me a lot to Eriksson was that it was such a global company. I truly felt that it was an amazing opportunity to be able to travel the world, work in different countries. But what keeps me in telecom is, that there's hardly any other industry that is so central to societal growth. I mean, we do nothing without connectivity. So I say, from a purpose perspective, I always stand up and I tell people whenever we have newly graduates joining our company, I say that you've joined the best.
Yeah.
Because to be at the center, everything without connectivity, nothing works. From a personal perspective, but also for societal. You see, everything is connected. Everything is hyper-connected. And if we're going to thrive as a society, we need more coordination to coordinate the most valuable assets on the planet: water, food, I would say even people, knowledge is about the coordination era. And to coordinate everything and everybody will require hyperconnectivity. So I think telecoms is absolutely plays a central role.
And Eriksson, yes, I can imagine. I can see you easily fitting in because, yeah, I've been there too. And I think the global, walking down the corridors, you just see the Chinese faces and the Nordic faces, and you just feel so at home.
Yes.
And Indian faces too.
Yes.
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 Yeah. But you have this wonderful blend of technical strength and leadership. How have you managed to get this combination, and develop it over the years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe it's probably I have a huge interest for human behavior, starting from myself. So I often say that it starts with me. What is it that drives me? Trying to understand myself. What motivates me? What makes me happy? What makes me sad? What makes me angry? And I believe that it's that interest that has evolved over time that has taken me into leadership. And in leadership, in many ways, people think that leadership is about managing people. But I separate these two. I say to manage is one thing. We need to be managers. We manage something, but we also need to lead. And leadership for me is about setting that direction, that vision, trying to understand what motivates people, how you will get people to walk in the same direction. Yeah. So those are very different things. I'm interested in both because one needs to have a combination of both.
And yes, and I hear what you say because that also has a flavor of strategy in it, right? So I think leadership and strategy also go hand in hand.
Yes.
How do you, exactly what you're saying, how do you get people to follow? How do you set the strategy and get everybody to buy into that strategy?
Yeah.
And that's very leadership to me.
And I, a few years ago, actually quite some years ago, I did a phenomenal leadership training. It's called Women Up. And it was initiated by Hillary Clinton in 2012, I think. And then she kind of spread it. She went, I think it was launched in US, then Brazil, and Sweden was the third country. So 2014, I was nominated to this. And anyways, it's a year program. And there the whole leadership program was very much about leadership.
Yeah.
You know how some leadership programs are about your strategy and so, but this is about getting to know yourself. And one of the things that just, really struck me and we worked a lot with was that for all people, what takes us forward is our strengths, but the things that hold us back are not our weaknesses. It's our fears. So it's our fears that are rooted in what we as individuals find are important to us. For some people, it's control. For some people, fairness is very important. For others, it's about inclusion. So depending on what predominantly we find as our biggest needs, it's when those are in danger, you could say, that our fears kick in.
Yeah.
So I think, also as a leader to know ourselves and try to understand what is it that holds me back, because to your point, how do you get people to join something? And as we all know, usually I say everybody likes change, but nobody likes to be changed. So when somebody else, when we take control, that's fine. And that's the thing, how do you make people feel that they are in control of their change? But also, what are their fears? Fears of letting go, fear of, my fears usually are not being, inclusion is very important to me. So usually my fears are maybe not being good enough, not living up to expectations, and that I won't be included. And so I think we all, I don't think that we get rid of our fears, but they say that once we recognize them, we can control them and say, well, is that really rational to be afraid of that? Or maybe not. So then, I think that probably encourages us to lean in once we can control them.
It resonates with me because I think fear sometimes can be so overwhelming.
It is.
Unless you say, and like you say, how can you control it? Knowing what you are fearful of is actually the start. Thank you. Gabriela, you've worked in different cultures. How has that changed your leadership style, navigating that?
I'll tell you a story when actually about Telecom Italia. So when I joined Telecom, 2 months into my job, I was sitting with a phenomenal leader, Marco Patuano, who at the time was the CEO of Telecom Italia. Truly a visionary, a super empathetic man with a very intelligent but with a big heart. And we were sitting in his office, and he said to me, "Okay, Gabriela, now you've been here for 2 months, so tell me, are we ready for change?" Because he brought me in to drive a bigger change in the company, and then he said to me, I think he asked me, "So tell me, what is different? What's different here at Telecom Italia compared to everywhere else you've been?" And I said to him, "Well, Mark, I'll start with telling you what is the same." So the same is that, well, it doesn't matter if you're Chinese, if you're Swedish, German, or Mexican. People, there are some things that are the same. People want to feel valued. People want to feel part of something, and they want to feel respected. So I said, and that is the same anywhere. So if that is a starting point, instead of saying what is different, it's better to start with saying what is exactly the same. And I think those principles apply everywhere. So there are many, to your point, what I've learned is that there are many things that are similar, across the world. In many ways where we might not look alike, but there are many things where we are alike as human beings, which is, we want to feel valued, and everybody wants to do good. That's my starting point. All of us want to do good within the boundaries of what we can, what we're empowered to do. But then, of course, there are differences. Of course, there are differences, societal differences, how we are brought up. Everything from religion can play a very important role. I know, my mom coming from a Catholic country, and my father not. In some countries, in Mexico, nobody minds their own business. It's all about, what is the neighbor? What's your grandmother going to say? What are the neighbors going to say? So of course there are differences. But I think the starting point, what is beautiful, is that the starting point is actually very similar.
Thank you. What's something about your work or your approach that people often tend to underestimate?
I think that one of the things that people truly underestimate is, if I look in my own environment, so the companies that I work for, it's the same. It's very similar. We want others to change, but we don't like to be changed. And I think it's what people underestimate the most is how much we ourselves also in our own organization truly need to change. What I mean is that, we work with technology, we're researching, we're adopters of technology to build these phenomenal networks that will have an impact on society. But this requires, of course, that society is ready for that change, for that technological change. And we often talk about everybody else having to accelerate their transformation. But I often look at myself and say, but we're also an enterprise. We're also employees of an enterprise, and probably we must not underestimate how important it is that we lead that change. So I think that's one angle. The other one is how difficult it is to always stay on top of things. I think this is, I was speaking to my parents actually the other day, and I was saying to them that, because my mom was always saying, things are different. I say, yeah, they are different. I think that in many ways society is evolving so much faster than in the past. And I think to stay, to be an influencer, to drive thought leadership requires that one really stays at the forefront, and that is often underestimated, how much one really needs to study and read all the time. Lifelong learning.
I agree with that, and I think that is also a challenge, because technology especially is changing so much, and it's hard to keep updated on everything. Like I usually tell my clients, I try to go from a data perspective, or try to understand what is the challenge that you're facing, because clients usually ask me, so what's the technology that I'm come to sell or I'm come to promote? And I don't go by that, because I think technology is based on, your need here and now. What do you need? How big is it? You don't have to go and buy the latest and the greatest. And I prefer to do the entire RFQ process to see what is out there, what adds value, instead of just being updated and say, oh, but we should buy this because this is the latest one that they're talking about.
You remind me of something that we often talk in my organization, and I tell my teams that it's, on the one hand, you have the technology, you need to understand the technology, but it's not the technology itself, it's the outcome of it. But that is not easy always. You can't miss what you've never seen. Right? So to imagine something which is out of what has been in your kind of surrounding is very difficult. So kind of the art of the possible, imagining the art of the possible, that is probably something that is very difficult for many, including myself. Every now and then I need to ask myself, okay, what does this actually mean? I often ask my team, we need to ask ourselves, so what? So now we have quantum is coming. There's all these, so what? So what? And what I mean by so what is, well, what does that mean to me?
Yeah.
What does that mean for my customers, for society, and that is it's difficult, because many of the technology, I think the biggest challenge that we face today compared to 40 years ago, 50 years ago, is that many of the technologies that are coming our way can be used for good as for bad. The very same technology. So it's going to be challenging from a policy perspective, safety perspective, but also to imagine it. On the one hand, really bad. You can talk about AI. Everything that we see now can be for really good, but it can also be, if it ends up in the hands of a malicious actor, it can be for very bad.
Your title covers research and network strategy. To me, it's like the perfect combination where, you're exploring opportunities and then also setting strategy, the direction of how you're going to take BT to the next step. What part of your role makes you feel like you're living 5 years ahead of the common man like me?
Well, it certainly is when I am speaking to some of our phenomenal researchers. I have so much respect for them, and sometimes I honestly just want to go up and give them a hug, because I feel so proud working, with them. And when they talk about the technology that they're researching, or when I meet academia, that's when I truly feel that I'm way ahead, and that's when I need to study. I need to be prepared. I need to understand what they're talking. Sometimes I only understand 50% of what they're saying. I need to go back and I read, and I'm like, okay, now I get it. So I think it's just phenomenal what is going on when you really talk to researchers. I love that part. Having said that, this is the challenge when in the type of organization that I'm in, because I'm not in a university. We don't do research. We do applied research, which is, it needs to be closer to some type of horizon of adoption. But I think that that is exciting. But then the biggest challenge is the adoption, because very often I distinguish between an innovation, an invention. I would start by saying not all inventions are innovations, and not all innovation leads to value creation. So you need to have lots of inventions. Now, I think that for most organizations, it's easier to adopt something which is within your business model of today, where you don't really need to make a lot of changes. But something that truly is innovative also changes your business model. So the biggest inventions have an impact on your business model. And when you need to change your business model for well-established organizations, the biggest challenge is that very often these business models are so different from what you do today that it's difficult to imagine. It requires different skill sets, different types of customers, different sales models, or it changes fundamentally what you're doing today, which is very disruptive. Actually, the example we can always go back to is Kodak, and I know everybody uses it, but I also use it and say, I often ask people, would you blame the inventors? You know, Kodak had the patents for the digital camera, and yet they went bankrupt. Now, would you blame the researchers who had the IP for it? Well, no, I don't think you could blame them. Actually, something went wrong in the adoption. All I can ever do is imagine what would have probably, I can see the boardroom and somebody comes and says to the CEO, the chair, you know, we have some phenomenal IP here, a true invention. And then somebody said, well, what is it about? Well, but it would change our business model totally. We're not going to make money from, you know, from film anymore. And they would say, what? Get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, that's such a big change that we're going to be disrupting ourselves. And probably they did nothing with that invention, right? Or not probably, they didn't do anything with the invention, and they were out of business. So I think this is, it's super exciting what is happening. Technology is super exciting, but it is difficult to bring it all the way, especially for well-established companies, to disrupt themselves, to drive that change processes. That's what AI, I think the biggest challenge with AI is not the technology itself, is that to truly leverage from AI, you need to change your processes.
And so this is a really good question as a follow-up. The impact that you want to leave behind, you know, both in the telecom world and in AI space, what does that legacy look like?
You know, it's. I often think about, you know, what is the impact. I think that for me, I'm more. Certainly, I think that one of the things that I want to do and what I'm driving, which is core of my job, is to build these great networks that will, you know, underpin societal growth, connecting everything. It's about security, trust. But I'm more interested in the people impact. One of the things that I love to do the most is to see people thrive. And believe it or not, on the one hand, yes, I work with building, you know, helping build these networks, you know, setting at least the direction where the networks are going, and looking at technology. But if there's something I would like to leave behind, I would like to know that I had an impact on people's lives more directly. I want to work with people who hopefully one day say, yes, she made me believe in myself. And because of Gabriela, I believed in my own ability to drive my change and be captain of my ship. And therefore, yeah, I went
wonderful.
down my path. That's what I would like to leave.
That is wonderful. Let's go into the AI and the networks now.
Yes.
So is AI going to be the heart of BT's network in the next 5 to 10 years?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think today, I think there's no organization can say that it won't have an impact. You know, the telecom networks are evolving super quickly, just like every technology. And one of the things that is happening at faster pace is, you know, everything is becoming software. We have multiple technologies. These are massive networks in terms of not only the width, you know, we serve millions of customers, both, you know, on the fixed network side as a mobile side. But it's all becoming quite complex to do, and everything needs to be more and more real time. So our North Star is to have a programmable network. That means that it kind of runs itself. Once somebody said to me, you know, we talk about software-defined networks, but you know, he said, well, it should be self-driving networks. So he said, just like self-driving cars, we want to have self-driving networks. So networks that really program themselves. So these programmable networks need to be underpinned by AI. Because everything will be about data-driven, you know, to understand our customers, how you know, the type of mobile phones they use, so device-aware networks that can configure themselves, you know, end-to-end based on your device, or based on the service that you're going to use, that they reconfigure themselves. And that needs to be underpinned by AI.
So where do you see the biggest value being added today in terms of, from AI, in terms of your network and customer experience?
I think this is absolutely interesting. You say that you mentioned customer experience. I think the first use cases have to be for customer experience.
Yes.
It's really, if you want to be truly customer centric, it has to be to enhance. And by the way, these programmable networks are also to underpin the best customer experience. A network that adapts to what you want it to do for you. But I want to mention one thing. One of the things that I often speak about when it comes to AI is that a lot of people are afraid of AI within organizations. Why? Because they believe that it's going to replace their jobs. And I often say that we need to approach AI from multiple lenses. One is, yes, let's use AI to automate the boring things. Mm-hmm. And you don't need, actually it's machine learning, so it's this early, you don't really need AI. But you can say automation. There's a lot of boring things that, use your time for better things. The other one is, of course, to use it for things that are almost impossible for the human brain to do in real time. But the most important one is augmentation. So I say not everything is to automate. You still need human in the loop, but to augment the human brain. That means to help it. So there are many, many tasks where we can use AI simply just to augment what we're doing. That means, enhance it, help it, so that we can go up the value chain. And we use it across, in all the companies I work for and with, AI is tried in multiple areas. One is in the networks, but also with customer care, even in HR processes. But I wouldn't say that it's today, that it's amplified and scaled big time. I think we are doing it in spots areas, and I think that at the moment is what I called, we do automation in I would say in domains, some component base. If you think about a system, but not these components are very seldom connected. And what you want to do is get to a system level of automation, right, where everything is connected. So everybody's exploring, but the biggest challenge is to really get to that big augmentation level, which requires that you connect everything much more holistically. And I think that the things that holds back are people's fears. They don't like it, but also that it requires a lot of change in IT. But the probably the biggest challenge is to have data. So you can redesign your process all you want, but if you don't have high quality data, and if it's scattered, well, that's not going to help. So right now we're focusing. We're kind of not. We haven't taken a step up, but we're kind of zooming out and say, well, maybe if there's one thing we have to invest in, it has to be to democratize data. Yeah. So I often talk about democratization of data. Everything needs to be democratized so that people can access data and also understand how they're going to innovate. We still have a bit of a culture in organizations where people approach data as if my data. Yeah. This is my data. I don't trust anybody else to use it. And I often say, well, it must be the best kept secret because even we don't use it, right? So I don't want you to use it, but I don't use it either. So lots of opportunities. We're using it, but also a lot of challenges.
Yeah. For the ones that are fearful of it, do you have a strategy of how you address it? Is the resistance?
Yeah, that's also a great question. Now, this is me personally. I personally feel that very often organizations unfortunately fall into the trap of having to tell the market how they're going to find efficiencies through AI. Rather than, and I say that you fall into that trap because when you say that and you announce to the market that I'm going to be reducing X amount of people because of AI, you've kind of fallen into the trap of saying that I'm going to use AI just to reduce people, instead of maybe saying I'm going to use AI to augment myself, I'm going to use AI to do more with the same. I'm going to use AI. So therefore, if you communicate, if you have that narrative, people are going to fear it and say, well, you see, I mean, now we just heard our leaders say that they're going to introduce more AI so that we can lay off people. So that triggers that first fear. So we've already, kind of augmenting the fear by also linking AI with reducing people. And how to address that? Well, I think it's by talking less about that as the driver, and probably turn around and say, well, the driver is to do more with the most important asset, which is people's knowledge. And that's why I often talk about the shift. I think we've been in the past years, we've been in the information era, and now shifting to the coordination era, where everything is about coordination of, we see environment, water, food, knowledge is also a rare commodity, the top knowledge. How do you coordinate people and how to use that? Well, we could also say that we want to connect people better. We want to use technology so that we can augment people's intelligence or use people's intelligence for the best possible outcomes. So I think that is one. And the other one is skill sets. I think every organization and every nation, here I'm proud of Sweden. I have to say, I think Sweden does phenomenal. It's a very progressive country when it comes to offering people to reskill themselves. Not many nations do that. Here you can reskill yourself until I don't know what age. I think you can until 70 plus, you can still go to university, right? But skill sets, to give people, amplify people's skill sets so that they don't fear. Remember, we talk about what holds us back. What's our fears? Nobody wants to become irrelevant. And how do we become irrelevant? Well, by not having the skill sets that allows us or enables us to be relevant. So I think skill sets as well, showing that society invests in people's skill sets, also another way to at least reduce that fear of being left behind.
Yeah, I think one of the talks that we had previously let us know that the leadership of the company, and here you play a big part. I mean, when you're, like you said, when you go out and talk about it and what we're going to do with the AI, that helped to bring down the resilience, the resistance, and help more people adopt the new ways of working.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But there's a lot of hype going on at the moment, with AI. So how do you balance that? How does BT balance the hype versus, reality and the value that you can actually get out? Because at the same time, I hear what you're saying. You got to keep inventing. And that machinery has to keep going, because one from there will probably go into the pipeline. How do you balance that?
I believe it's about showing people success stories. That's the only way to, first of all, to go away from the hype. Because if you just stick to the theoretical value of AI, you probably leave it up to the imagination of people. I mean, we all know what happens when things are left to our own imagination, right? It can go either way, great or not great. So I try to say, let's not leave it up to everybody's imagination. It's good, let them imagine for a little while, but then start explaining, start showcasing the great things. Put people up on stage, the ones that are adopting it well, the ones that are driving change through AI. And so I think that's one way of trying to do it. Demystify it in a way. Let people try, hands-on experience. But it's like with all, and I think I often try to also approach people by not only explaining things, but trying to understand their motives and their fears, because only then do I know, how to address them. But then, of course, the bigger the organization, one suit doesn't fit all, and you cannot adopt. If there are 1,000 people, how do you, tailor make your response to 1,000?
True.
But I do think that success stories, once again, it's about seeing, about understanding what this is all about. And now we talk about AI. I actually think that one of the even more disruptive technology is going to be quantum.
Yeah, and I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
Because, yes, I'm so curious. I understand that you are working with quantum safe communications. Could you tell us what that is and why it is needed?
Yes. So, it's interesting with quantum because people tend to think that, okay, quantum is like 2030, 2035. And people think about the quantum computer, which of course is correct. Everything is going to be amplified. The impact of quantum will be amplified once the quantum computer is here and it's scaled and democratized. But I usually we look at quantum in three, or we bucket it into three different areas. One is the quantum computer, which is still a few years ahead, but it's getting closer and closer. Many breakthroughs, especially in the last 12 months. But quantum has been around for 100 years. I mean, the quantum itself. It's just that it's probably the last 30 years that we know how to control these qubits, and what to do with it. But we look at our role as a telco. I always say that our role is to understand a new technology and how I adopt it for my business. So AI for networks, which we talk about, customer experience, programmability, but also me as the enabler of societal growth. How do I prepare my network for my customers' adoption of AI? Right? So there will be an explosion of AI. So networks for AI. The same for quantum. So we need to understand, how will quantum impact my business? So the use of quantum computing for network optimization, for example, network synchronization and timing, versus how do I, as a telco, once again, prepare my networks for my customers' adoption of quantum. And this is where I say the networks for quantum. And this is why we focus. Why do we focus on quantum secure comms? Is because once the quantum computer is here, this will be like a super, the mother of all computers. So the difference between quantum and AI is that AI, you can, as an organization, allow yourself to prepare and try to understand what will AI do for me. But with quantum, you can't. And what I mean with that is that I'm quite convinced that the first use case when the quantum computer is here is going to be a threat to security. So because many people talk about the quantum computer, to be able to do these super complex, solve massively complex problems that today's supercomputer probably would take 10 years to solve, or 20 years. It will be able to do it in minutes. Mm-hmm. The same, it will be able to break cryptography in minutes. So think about all this super secret data that governments have, that the pharma has on their IP, that is encrypted today. So if somebody would steal encrypted data today, it would probably take a supercomputer maybe 20 years to break that encryption. Hardly worthwhile doing, right? But with a quantum computer, it can break that encryption in a minute or two.
Wow.
So that's why government. So there are two things. One is, to redo that cryptography to a new algorithm, so post-quantum cryptography. That's already here. So there are many governments, or we encourage organizations to actually prepare and do that migration. It's going to take years. Many predict it's going to take like 8 to 10 years for governments to migrate this. But that's one. That's when you have data in storage. But then you have data in transit. right? So when data is, and then you have these public keys with data that, that is, when you send very sensitive data, you send it with keys. Also, quantum can break that key or steal that key. Now, that's what we're preparing now, what we call quantum key distribution. So you do the public key distribution across networks with quantum technology. And that is unbreakable because these photons are so sensitive that if anybody tries to eavesdrop, you will know immediately. So we're preparing the networks to be quantum safe. So that's one in the first phase. And the next phase will be, well, you will need to connect quantum computers. So there will be a new quantum network eventually over time. And the UK government has announced that it wants to have the most advanced quantum network in the world by 2035.
Well, I hope everyone's as inspired as I am. That was so wonderful. Thank you for sharing. As my last question, I have a fun one. If AI was a dinner guest at your leadership roundtable, what kind of personality would it have?
Well, I love people that have a great sense of humor. So if I'm going to be at a dinner, I love people who can tell funny stories about life, good storyteller, and as I said, hopefully a funny one, and with a big heart. And I say this with a big heart. If I may, I'll share something. I was talking to a person a few weeks ago who said to me, "Oh, Gabriela, you smile quite a lot, and you seem to be a very caring leader. Do you think that holds you back?" And I reflected and I thought, well, that's an odd question. I'm not sure he would have asked that to somebody else, but I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, maybe people think that you cannot be assertive. And I said, oh, trust me, I can be assertive. Absolutely, I can. But I believe one can be assertive and still do a lot of things and drive tough change, but with heart.
With heart. Thank you. I second that. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriela. It was so much fun and so inspiring. You're really a leader with a heart. I vouch for that.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to our listeners and our audience, thank you for watching, for joining us. And if you haven't subscribed already, I said it the last time, what are you waiting for? Bye for now.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.